20 years.
Sino bibitahin natin ngayon?
20 years in journalism. The best talaga, bro. Ano ba yan, bro?
Ang ganda
Bro,
ng mundo, ang ganda ng
kamusta?
mundo natin, ha? Uy, ikaw, na-miss kita, pero napaka-depressing ng mga pinagsasabi-sabi mo.
Kaya nga,
Did you just say that the return of Trump augurs a return of the Dutertes?
they
Is
say.
that really how you feel about the world? Yan ba talaga kutob mo?
Not true, not true. No, bro, I mean, actually, the reason I really wanted you back, by the way, everyone has been looking for your brother. So many people love you,
Salamat.
care. Great people, amazing people. Everyone's
Thank you
looking.
very much. Thank you.
Everyone is looking for you. Um,
Millions and millions.
Millions and millions. No, seryoso bro. Wala na. Pag tumatawa kami ng ganyan, ibig sabihin depressed na tayo sa mundo.
Oh,
Because you're the guru of liberalism in the Philippines from an intellectual standpoint. So, I think medyo nagtumugma na naman yung pag-iisip natin. Ako parang, shucks, pabalik-balik yata tong populism na to. It's the only game in town. Ikaw naman, you're the liberalism guy. You tell me kung may pag-asa pa rin ng liberalism in its current form or something. So, Tagalog or English?
hindi natin alam, 'di ba? May magandang article kanina sa New York Times, yung article ni Adam Grant. Sinasabi niya, nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And usually kasi, sabi niya, kunwari, you're disappointed, malungkot ka, and so that creates a kind of bias towards the negative, of course. You think more of the same. And then, kung masaya ka, that creates more of a bias. You think everything's going to be hunky-dory in the future. So, I think this kind of works. Naalala ko nung panalo si Pinoy, I was kind of happy with the state of Philippine liberal democracy. And then kahit nung medyo hindi na siya sikat, I thought people generally accepted liberal democracy in the Philippines. I didn't see Duterte happening in 2016. Although nakita nga natin na bumulusok siya towards the end. Ganun din, nung 2016, akala natin na moderate Republicans yung mananalo on the Republican side, pero bumulusok din si Trump. So hindi natin makikita. Um, in 2020, at the height of the pandemic, a lot of people thought Trump was going to win. And then he botched the pandemic response and then biglang nanalo si Biden. So, hindi natin alam or we can go further back, di ba? In the 70s or in the 80s, even in the early 80s, hindi alam ng tao na guguho ang komunismo. Di ba? Akala nila sobrang lakas ng komunismo and then overnight, the Berlin Wall fell, so to speak. So, hindi natin, the one thing I've learned as a political commentator, and syempre medyo matagal na rin natin ginagawa ito, medyo sabay tayo nagsimula, di ba? Babies tayo of the second Aquino
Right.
administration, doon talaga tayo natutong magsalita sa publiko. Medyo maangas pa tayo nun, bro, di ba? Ano pa tayo, confident pa tayo mag-predict ng mga panahon na yun eh. Ngayon, bro, nawala na ako ng angas, hindi ko na alam talaga kung ano mangyayari. This world is so unpredictable dahil ang daming mga factors na hindi natin alam kung paano niya may impluwensyahan yung mga pangyayari. Hindi natin alam, hindi natin na predict that social media would have such an impact on sa Duterte election. Just sa election na to ni Trump, hindi natin na-anticipate yung effect, for example, ng manosphere or ng podcast, yung JRE, for example, Joe Rogan Experience. And then, what is AI going to do for elections moving forward? Di rin natin ma-anticipate yun. So, given yung bilis ng takbo ng mundo natin, sa tingin ko, prognostication, parang medyo laos na. Medyo laos na, wala na mga Nostradamus ang politics ngayon. Uh,
Th-
we just take things
Thank you.
as they happen.
Thank you very much. Parang
Ikaw, gusto ko matanong ko sa'yo.
sinira mo yung career ko ah. Public
Anong
service.
anong feels mo about predictions these days?
No, bro. I mean, my arguments are very structural. Very, very structural. First of all, I mean, alam ko sa atin dalawa, ikaw yung historiador. Siyempre, as political science, I look at patterns, whatever, in my own way. No, una-una, wag natin kalimutan na kung hindi tumakbo si Pinoy noong 2010, si Erap Estrada yung naging presidente natin 2010 pa lang. So speaking of populist return, kitang-kita natin sa sariling kasaysayan natin na napaka-resilient ng mga populist at kaya nila bumalik. Imagine mo yung nangyari kay Erap. Etsa Dos, convicted plunderer, pinahiya, lahat niyan. Medyo hindi rin ganun ka-effective nung bumalik siya sa Manila. And yet, he would have become our president 2010 pa lang. Go
Bro,
to
na-imagine mo paano kaya kunwari, hindi tumakbo si Manny Villar, do you think his votes would have gone to Erap and then panalo siya? It's,
probably even more.
you
Yeah.
never know, di ba? Oo.
Probably even more. tignan mo yung Thailand, katabi natin, pinaka-similar na country natin. 20 years ago, taxing the father. 10 years ago, the sister. Now, the daughter. So, ako naman, of course, we can always look at the differences, but ang dami ko nakikita itong populist resilience. Kaya yung sinend ko yung piece ni Sasha Monk sa'yo, about Yasha bro. Why is it so hard? Sorry, si Sasha Baron Cohen. I still have the movie disclaimer in my mind. It's a wonderful movie with Kate Blanchett. But anyway, going back to this, also like Berlusconi, ilan beses siya bumalik hanggang sobrang matanda na siya. So the Melonis and the Salvinis came up. So ang akin lang, hindi ko naman sinasabi na exactly itong mangyari. Ang sinasabi ko is the structural conditions are there. And one of the structural conditions obviously is yung information ecosystem natin ngayon, which favors something that you and I kind of run against. Imagine mo, aminin natin, the reason na nagdedebate tayo all those days is dahil idol natin yung mga nasa British Parliament na napakatalino, napakagaling, etc. And then na-analyze ko si Boris Johnson and how cynical he is. I said, look at it, even the best debaters in human history probably, Boris Johnson, brilliant guy. He's just so cynical. He realizes it's all about that messy hair and making jokes and all of that. So na-realize ko yung Tony Blair era of technocracy and brilliant guy and great speeches essentially ended. Obama was the last guy. So that's the information ecosystem which amplifies yung mga more disruptor types, right? So
Tsaka yung isa pa dyan, di ba yung crisis? Ang daming crisis. So,
100%.
Populists thrive on crisis.
Uncertainty,
So,
right?
Uncertainty. Di ba? Yung initial
It's
emergence
psychological.
ng populism, they say, it can be traced back dun sa economic collapse or dun sa deflationary, dun sa crisis ng ng 2000s. And then, in a way, if you think about Trump, but also the first Trump administration and this Biden administration, biktima sila ng COVID. So, if you remember noong 2020, early in 2020, dapat mananalo si Trump ng re-election eh.
Right.
People were prognosticating na mananalo siya. Eh na COVID, pumalpak yung response. Tanggal siya dahil kay Biden. Ito, Biden actually is a great president by many standards. Yung ganda ng legislative record, merong soft landing on the economic crisis, pero tinamaan siya ng supply shock crisis ng COVID. Inflation. Natenga siya ng COVID. So in a sense, there's a kind of mirroring there. And I get this from Adam Tooze. Both the first Trump administration and the Biden administration and the Biden administration were victims of COVID. So in a way, parang I don't know if it's any source of comfort kung ano yung nangyari sa Republicans, nangyari sa Democrats ngayon.
I absolutely agree with that, bro, in the sense that this was the anti-incumbency or bugbog sarado lahat ng mga governments in Europe, from Macron in France to Germany, Scholz, even worse. I get it. So actually things were really running against Kamala Harris. We'll discuss your kapitbahay shortly kasi we want to talk also about the candidate and the moment and strategy. But this is the third structural issue, and this is where I really appreciate yung argument of Francis Fukuyama. We may not agree with Fukuyama. I think he's much more conservative than both of us. I think we're both stronger believers in contemporary liberalism in the sense that naniniwala ko na maganda na binibigyan ng boses, plataforma, yung mga minorities, katulad natin in a way, LGBT, colored women, etc. Pero sangayon din ako kay Francis Fukuyama na yung toxic combination ng neoliberalism. So it's interesting to hear people from Hudson Institute and J.D. Vance arguing against globalization.
Talaga.
Diba? So yung toxic combination ng globalization, which is benefiting guys in Wall Street back in the day, now maybe Connecticut, the BlackRock guys, and some people in Shanghai, Hong Kong, but most of us working class, middle class, nahirapan tayo, and an overemphasis on identity politics at the expense of class-based, industrial, job creation-based discussion. I don't want to use the word class conflict, class struggle. I think hindi na talaga mag-work yan. Ang hirap mag-depends ng liberalism because now liberalism is a stand-in for that toxic combination of yung economic globalization, which used to be good, but it's not creating jobs for a lot of... when I say toxic, not morally, I'm talking about politically, electorally speaking, especially when we talk about yung second part, which is what you can call woke liberalism. Woke
Yeah.
liberalism has its merits. I completely disagree with Francis Fukuyama that there's something wrong with it. I don't believe it's distortion. But pag sinama mo yung dalawan, ang hirap manalo ng votes dun sa working
Sabit ka.
classes.
Sabit
So
ka.
from an electoral standpoint, I just don't know how to sell this
Sabit ka.
liberalism anymore. So yun yung structural argument ko, bro. So that's where I'm coming from. And in the Philippines, we can look at
Tama
this
talaga.
variation.
Tama, pero yung Pilipinas, I think we are always reminded of working class politics because of the way we structure our surveys and also the way we talk about our politics. Remember, ang sampling dito sa US, ang assumption lagi ng sampling is people follow certain demographic trends.
Right.
So they will sample based on ethnicity, Black, Hispanic, Asian American, di ba? So in a way, the sampling method is reflective of reality, but it also kind of makes people think, baka ang divisions ng America are ethnic divisions. Eh sa atin, ano ba ang sampling sa atin? It's always geography and class, di ba? A, B, C, D, and then Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, balance Luzon, Metro Manila, Visayas, Mindanao, di ba? So ang reinforced difference always sa atin is we're meant to think about the differences between the big island groupings and the differences between class. So lagi natin nakikita when we process elections, sino ba gusto ng mga mahihirap? Dito, ang tanong, sino ba gusto ng mga blacks? Sino ba gusto ng mga Hispanic, di ba? And I guess that's an interesting difference because in the Philippines, we'll never forget class difference the way Americans did. Yun yung problema dito, nakalimutan nila yung class difference eh. They thought about Latinos, for example, as a ethnic bloc. When in fact, ang bifurcation ng Latino is yung working class Latino is starting to vote similarly to a kind of working class white non-college educated voter who they're voting for Trump, di ba? And these Latinos, you don't make them feel welcome by addressing certain identitarian concerns like, saying Latinx kayo. Nako, para mga Pilipino yan eh. Maasal lang sa'yo yan pag tinawag mo silang Filipinx, di ba? I think less than 20% of Latinos identify as Latinx or maybe even less. I'm sure kung sinurvey mo mga Filipino, Filipinx, hindi rin. And it's that kind of thing na nakaka-turn off. Kahit ako mismo, parang I believe in diversity. Obviously, I believe in inclusion. Pero feel ko, sobra na yung kunwari, mandatory calling of yourself as Filipinx in the US.
Yeah.
Pilipino ako eh. At saka galing akong Pilipinas. So I understand yung mga Latino na parang, sito mga Amerikano sinasabi sa akin na Latinx ako when I'm obviously Latino. So may mga ganyang klaseng annoyances. Speaking of Kamala, because we're going to talk about the incumbent, hindi naman siya nakatuon sa identity politics. Let's just clarify that. Pero yung accumulated defense of the Democratic Party of a certain kind of identity politics, a very narrow version thereof, tainted her. And of course, noong 2020, she bought into that then eh. So madaling i-bring up yung parang mga old things na sinabi ni Kamala that could have that damaged her on that front. Yung pinaka-effective na campaign, isa sa mga pinaka-effective campaign ads daw against her was yung Kamala Harris is for they, them. Donald Trump is for you, di ba? And, that's obviously
right.
offensive. But it's effective for a certain kind of listener. Sanay naman tayo ng mga Pilipino sa ganyan eh. Alam naman natin na hindi porket bastos ka, matatalo ka, di ba? Lalo in this day and age, di ba? I mean, we elected Duterte. So,
yun yung sinasabi ko eh, we live in an era that structurally favors disruptors. And at the same time, allows these disruptors to weaponize any annoyance. I think, clearly may mga annoyance at this top-down cultural revolution. I mean, let's call it. It is a top-down cultural revolution.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
It is. I mean, again, I don't want to put you into trouble. I know you're at the heart of that cultural revolution. And I don't mean it in a pejorative term. It is a cultural revolution, right? If 10 years ago someone told me na, no, you have to be extremely conscious about saying this and that kasi politically incorrect yan. Well, still that's top-down because there are costs. You're going to be ostracized by institutions. You're going to get canceled. The whole cancel culture. So I never felt cancel culture is bad enough to justify this and that. But I think enough people were annoyed to allow disruptors like Trump to completely demonize it and say, you see, this is like communism and all of that. Of course, Kamala is not communist. She was a prosecutor. One reason a lot of African-American male were not into her is because of, her background as a prosecutor, which of course we know how things work in the US. But yun yung problema. I think it was easy for Trump to caricature all the Democratic Party as a bunch of like Stalinist, top-down, dictators. because of this annoyance around, not everyone, but a lot of folks, I think enough folks who felt annoyed by this whole cultural revolution thing. Not to mention the issue of abortion and all is also a culturally sensitive issue. Obviously, in blue states like yours, or among progressive like us, we are all for 100% rights for women. But there are a lot of Americans who see that as, well, parang pinapatay mo yung bata. Ganun na narinig ko dun sa mga conservatives sa US
Sa akin hindi siya kasing wedge issue as it is sa Philippines for being abortion. Dito
Yeah.
abortion is popular. And that cuts across party lines. Malino naman yung data. It's popular. I think many Republicans were anti-abortion, and then nung bumagsak yung Dobbs decision and they realized, shit, yari ako. Wala na yung abortion para na akong Pilipinas. A lot of them backtrack. Kaya kung tignan mo naman yung electoral results, popular pa rin naman yung abortion as an issue. And most
Yeah, it won
abortion
7 out of 10 states kasi it was also on the ballot.
most
So,
abortion measures still passed. So I think that was still a strong point. Yung Dobbs is still strong for Democrats. But it wasn't enough to kind of counter the other factors that you mentioned. Dobbs, by the way, for our Filipino listeners, yung Dobbs, yun yung decision that reversed yung
Supreme Court,
Roe versus
Roe
Wade,
versus
which gave
Wade.
women the right to abortion, yung Dobbs decision.
ako naman kasi bro,
Uh,
I agree that more than 60, 65, 67% of Americans are for women having more rights, blah, blah, blah. Pero I also agree with that argument that iba yung framing niyan. It's more paternalistic framing from a mainstream standpoint than a more feminist understanding of absolute autonomy over your body. And the other thing is, among conservative Latino, Asian American communities, I think Trump was able to to carve out just enough. So I agree with you. Now, of course, the data is majority of Americans are moving to the left on some of these cultural issues. But all Trump had to do is just to get some more people from Latino, from Asian. Ganun naman ang game. He still lost the minority. The reason he's the president is because he won the majority of white women and white male. But ang game kasi dito, bro, is pitik-pitik dito, di ba? Pitik-pitik dito, pitik-pitik dyan. So and Trump was also smart enough to, at the same time, while getting the evangelical votes, he was also saying that no, I'm not gonna do anything new. I'm just gonna pass it down to the states. So he was able to have the cake and eat it too. So he was pretty smart on that.
Maraming example lang ganyan of Trump having the cake and eating it too. For example, yung Israel-Palestine, di ba? Yung mga pro-Palestine pinunish yung Democrats for, encouraging and supporting a genocide in Gaza. But at the same time, they voted for Trump, who is actually more pro-Israel. And naging
Pro-Bibi.
object siya ng protest vote. First, there were some people who voted for Trump as a kind of protest vote against the Democrats for supporting Netanyahu, but they voted for Trump. And at the same time, there were also people who voted for Trump dahil mas pro-Bibi siya. He had his cake and ate it too because nga of, I think, yung anti-incumbency bias. And then yung galit talaga. And the general rightward shift. Kasi the other thing that I want to point out nga pala, and ito yung mapapansin mo, even in California, there's a rightward shift because there's a sense of disorder. So for example, dito sa California, mga progressive prosecutor tanggal. Merong bagong sentencing proposition that raised the sentences for theft and drug usage. Pasado 79% or something like that, 70+%. Even if the very popular Democratic governor opposed it. Yung mayor dito sa San Francisco, si London Breed, tanggal kasi hindi niya masolve yung crime. Pinilitan siya ng isang konyo na mayaman who's the heir to the fortune of the Levi Strauss family. And this is in deep blue California, where ang tindi ng kind of rightward shift. And I must admit, kahit ako, hindi naman ako bumoto. But if I had voted, I wouldn't have voted in someone who said, defund the police, ganyan. Whereas maybe in 2020, baka okay pa sa akin. Pero nakita ko talaga na ang gulo ng California.
Can I talk about that, bro? Kasi I don't know if you watched that, if you listened to that Ezra Klein episode, there was this discussion with this reporter. Ang argument niya is, if you look at the data, pababa yung crime, di ba? Yung index crime overall. But the sense of chaos is going up. So, vibes siya, vibes.
Alam mo, hindi naman necessary kasi na nagko-commit ng crime, pero yung sense mo na magulo. So earlier today, galing ako LA this morning
Yeah.
Galing akong Skid Row. Oh my God. I mean, it feels like a kind of zombie town na parang ayaw mo maglakad doon. And then, I was just in LA, like yesterday in LA, I went to CBS. may pumasok doon, kumuha ng galon ng tubig, just walked out. Yung mga nagbebenta, some of them Pinoy going, sir, 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 are you gonna pay for that? They couldn't do anything about it. He just walks out and
Oh,
takes the
wow.
bottle of water. Normal yun dito. I was in Oakland maybe 6 months ago. Nasa auto supply shop ako, naghanap ako ng replacement auto parts. Sabi nila, ano daw, pumapasok lang daw yung mga tao, they take the auto batteries and just walk out. They just walk out. They don't give a
Yeah.
shit. Alam nilang walang mangyayari sa kanila. May ganong klaseng sense of kind of
Yeah.
impunity. Like actually yung sa LA, okay pa sige tubig yung kinuha kasi kailangan mo uminom nun eh. Pero yung sa Oakland, yung parang papasok lang kukuha ng car battery and then mag-walk out. May ganyang klaseng impunity na nakakainis
Yeah.
na ewan ko, yun nga parang I know the statistics don't bear it out, pero merong feeling, and I don't know where that feeling comes from. I wonder if it's similar dun sa Pilipinas, yung 2016. Kasi di ba noong 2016, sabi, hindi naman talaga gano'ng kataas yung drug crime sa
Yeah.
Pilipinas, di ba? Pero nung sinabi ni Duterte, malaking problema, naniwala yung
Hindi,
mga tao.
kasi 'di ba
So,
they think of the
what
tambay,
explains
they
that?
think of the yung mga epal here and there vibes eh. It's a vibes thing. Para siyang yung recession, 'di ba? Vibe session because US economy is doing well among all major economies. My goodness, it's such a wealth. Every year I come back to US, I realize how wealthy US is. When I compare it to Europe and Japan and other places, like America is such a vibrant, dynamic society. At the same time, no one is appreciating that.
No,
Yes,
I'm very happy with the state of my retirement fund. Let me just put it this way. Like the S&P 500, like if I'm just being completely selfish, ang problema ngayon. Ano ang problema ngayon? Lalo na nung nanalo si Trump, tinignan ko yung retirement account ko. By the way, you shouldn't, right, financial advice sa mga tao, you shouldn't be looking at your retirement fund. You should just keep putting money,
hey, it's for
walk
your
away, don't look
it's
at
for
it.
your
Pero natempt
psychological
ako the other day
well-being.
to look and wow, it's kind of nice after Trump won.
Great people, amazing people. Now, bro, I want to go back to the basics, okay, and then I want to end on the Quadcom issue, the whole Duterte thing. But una-una, pwede mo explain para sa ating audience, ano ba talagang liberalismo? Because I think your book on the case of liberalism in post-colonial states like the Philippines was one of the most revealing one to me. In fairness, I mean, I've read a lot of stuff, but yours was really it hit home. Kaya nga after that, sabi ko, I'm a Leloy fan. After reading that book, I'm
Salamat,
I'm
salamat.
officially a Leloy fan right now, right? Before that, parang hindi tayo
Ako,
believe sa isa't isa. But after reading software, no, he's good. He's really good. Please, Guro, tell us what is liberalism.
salamat. As you know, the feeling is obviously mutual. The most cosmopolitan yet simultaneously balahura podcaster in Philippine politics that you'll ever find. My brother Richard A. Darian. So ang definition ko ng liberalism, dalawa. Kasi yung una, liberalism is a defense of freedoms. Right?
Right.
Pero, and that's what liberty is, it's freedom. Pero it's not an untrammeled defense of freedoms. So I would qualify yung saying defense of freedom by saying that we are not just defending liberty, we are defending ordered liberty. And by ordered liberty, liberals usually mean that you can use the apparatuses of state power to engender liberty. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng ordered liberty. And then, of course, ngayon marami mga more expansive definition of liberalism, but I think I like that. So my definition of liberalism therefore doesn't preclude other things that we like for example, market intervention to create more social and economic justice. Pasok yun sa liberalismo ko because within that kind of liberalism, naniniwala naman tayo sa positive freedoms or freedom not just from but freedom to. So and then the state in ordering liberty can ensure people's freedom to do stuff. And babalik ako sa, and I think, as cheesy, as repetitive as this may sound, marami ko nung beses nasabi ito sa podcast na to, pero ulitin ko lang, what will save liberalism is really economic justice. Because if the same liberals are the liberals na nagpapakain sa'yo, nagbibigay sa'yo ng healthcare, pwede mo silang suportahan. Pero kung yung mga liberal ay hindi yung mga taong nagbibigay ng edukasyon sa'yo, mismanage the government, nagkakanda gulo-gulo lahat, you will not just doubt the liberals, you will doubt the rights-based order that the liberals represent. Yun yung nangyari sa Pilipinas after Kate Pinoy. Yun yung nangyari dito sa US ngayon. Ikaw, how do we ensure liberal survival? Or what can we do?
No, well, first of all, bro, thank you so much for that. Yung ordered liberty, that was one of the favorite part in the book. So, like, it perfectly captures my understanding of liberalism. But the way the pithy way you put it was amazing. For me kasi parati bro, binabalikan ko rin yung kasaysayan. Tsaka yung mga sinusulat mo, tsaka yung isang interview mo rin sa New York Times. What went wrong with liberalism in the Philippines? Kasi pwede natin sabihin si Rizal ay isang liberal, di ba? A radical
Yeah.
liberal. Because
Oo.
liberalism was radical in 19th century Spanish colony,
Oo.
right? I mean, people forget
Yeah.
that.
Yun nga, yun yung talaga yung problema eh. Sasabihin nila parang nauso nung 1970 saying na na actually hindi radical si Rizal or radical si Rizal. Si Flore Kibuyan said actually radical si Rizal kasi hindi siya liberal, which is kind
Yeah,
of weird because what was radicalism in the 19th century?
exactly.
Well, radicalism, a lot of it was liberalism because what were the major what is radical? Revolutionary. What were the revolutions of the 18th century? There or at 18th century, early 19th century, American Revolution, French Revolution, Asian Revolution,
Italian
Mexican
Revolution, yeah,
Revolution,
Italian War of Independence, the same, all, yeah.
Mexican Revolution, Philippine Revolution, all liberal revolutions. So, paano mo sasabihin hindi radical ang liberalismo ng panahon na yon when all of the national liberation movements were actually liberal? So obviously it was radical. And so Rizal was a kind of radical. I mean, if he wasn't a radical, bakit siya papapatay ng ganon? Or is-scapegoat ng ganon? I think there was something threatening about what he said, and I think liberalism, yung demand natin for freedom, is threatening to people in power. And ito lang yung sasabihin ko, lahat, sabi nga ni Ninoy Aquino, wala namang dictatorship that lasts forever. No
Right.
suppression of freedom lasts forever. Lahat ng mga yan, yung Tagalog sinasabi natin may tanning. Ang tanong lang, gano'ng katagal yung tanning? Ang tanong lang, Richard, buhay pa ba tayo pag gumuho na itong mga sistemang to? Yun ang tanong. Pero guguho yan. Hindi lang natin alam kung
Yeah,
kailan, di ba?
wala naman akong masasabi dyan. Just to be clear, hindi ko naman sinasabi na forever na ito lahat ng mga nangyari ngayon. Ang
Oo.
sinasabi ko lang is, we need to do our assignment. Kasi kung hindi natin gagawin yan, kaya ang paborito kong mga kausap pagdating sa politika ay hindi mga French. I mean, in theory, mga French ang pinakamalapit sa akin in terms of, like the bon vivant, vivacious intellectualism. But actually, mga Aleman. Because ang mga Aleman,
Ganun ba?
yeah, they're always the ones that keep my foot on the ground. Kasi when I'm with the French, I'm always like going into like this romantic phase of political thinking. But the Germans always told me something very, very interesting. Sabi nila, the liberal conception is that politics is a pendulum. What we experience in Germany is that once in a while, someone will come and put a nail and the pendulum doesn't swing back anymore. So be careful of that guy. Make sure that guy doesn't come. Make sure that nail doesn't come in. So completely agree ako sa'yo na pag tinignan mo kasaysayan, may swings talaga yan eh. May ups and downs yan. Pero minsan din, dalawang concern ko. The nail and then the secular trend. So yung structural conditions kung saan nagiging mas mahirap na yung technocratic, liberal, kung ano-anong yung inisip natin na mahalaga sa mundo natin. So yun yung those are things that keep me honest and on ground. But I am absolutely agree with you that of course emotions get in, frustration get in. Going back to the Philippines, ako naman kasi, tragedy natin na we had the greatest revolutionary thinkers in the 19th century, but we had the worst people to continue that legacy.
Oh my.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the Philippine political elite from Commonwealth on. I mean, of course, your upcoming book, fantastic, Quezon, Sir Osmeña, yes. But the overall composition, with exceptional cases,
Quezon, I'm not sure. Pero Osmeña, meron ako newfound respect for Osmeña, actually.
because of industrial policy and all of
Oh,
that, right?
oh.
So, that's the tragedy. We had the most brilliant guys at the forefront of Asian liberal revolution, and then by 20th century, we had the worst people. And then it got even worse over time because you had the Codillo style like Marcos and the oligarchy to completely co-opt the system. So,
Nakalimutan mo ata si Tatay.
wait, wala pa. Si Tata is 21st century. So,
Si
yun
Tatay.
yung,
Oo
yun
nga
yung,
pala.
yun yung problema ko eh. So, I mean, I won't be surprised na si Tatay ay actually idealistic at some point in his, I mean, you never know, right? He had some sort of a socialist communist bent, which doesn't make him okay, but maybe a part of him was still idealistic enough, and at some point he just became so cynical because he saw it's really warlords and oligarchs. So this distortion, bro, for me is the singular tragedy of the Philippines. that we had the opposite of original sin. We had an original blessing in the Ilustrados, and then we had the curse that came afterwards, which is this, godforsaken oligarchs and warlords who completely distorted our liberalism. Hence, we in the 21st century, biglang naging pejorative ang liberalismo sa Pilipinas. And to be
Saka
honest,
yung
nahihirapan ako
yung
how to turn this around.
yung diktador natin did not place us on an economic trajectory that would eventually create more liberal institutions. Kasi kung tingnan mo si Park Chung-hee, hindi naman siya liberal, pero
No.
he created a kind of economic system na in the long run allowed for one of the greatest economic miracles in the world
Absolutely.
that ushered in a kind of that eventually ushered in a kind of liberal democracy for a stable, very stable liberal democracy for Korea, di ba? Or Japan iba, pero in a way Japan rebuilt itself from the war and created an economic miracle that then sustained a kind of liberal democracy. Actually, in this world, we should also think about Japan because everyone everywhere is unstable, pero actually Japan is like one of the most stable liberal democracies in the world. Laging maaasahan. At if you're a watcher of Japanese politics, sure there are swings, pero by and large kaya mong huminga sa Japan. And I thought, people would have thought Germany was similar, but actually
No,
Germany like these days is
no,
kind
no.
of like nakakapraning na rin eh. Crazy na rin ang Germany ulit.
Germany
Japan
is,
like
the East and West Germany reality is still very stark there, bro.
very stark.
Japan
very stark.
never had
Oo.
that. On the Japan issue, I remember earlier this year when I was in Tokyo, we had a conversation with one of the top, New York Times yata itong mga taon to. There was this metaphor na Japan is, the metaphor for Japan is how skyscrapers are built in Japan. So you can pass by a boulevard and for 2 years, they're just fixing yung ground, yung foundation. And then suddenly within 3 months, the skyscraper is there. So it's like,
Then
may pagka-gun girl siya, yung quiet siya lang, and then, you know what I'm saying? May ganun siya eh.
Ganyan din ang social policy. One day, for example, something is illegal and then the next day it's legal and then wala nang culture war about it. Tanggap na ng mga tao. Ganon. It's a very fascinating society yung capacity to turn on a dime like that. I don't know kung meron tayo nun. Anyway, where was I? Sorry, balik tayo.
We're talking about Japan, no? Na if you look at
yung
it,
yung Korea example, because yung
Yeah.
Korea is actually more comparable to us, diba, as opposed to Japan. Yung Korea was like described in the 50s as a bottomless pit of corruption, and then nagkaroon ng and then may diktadura din, may martial law din. Pero mas maayos yung diktador nila. I think yun yung problema natin. Meron tayong feckless caudillo caciques like the Latin Americans, pero bulok sila. Meron din tayong developmental dictator kagaya ng Korea, pero bulok siya. Parang whatever the others have na nahanapan ng silver lining, sa atin walang silver lining. Alam mo, parang
that's true. That's and the timing.
Anong klaseng kamalasan yan?
You were
At
also-
saka yung timing, sama ng timing lagi.
But I'll add something, and here I want to go towards a more positive note before we finish this podcast. And I know you're not a late night person, but ako kasi bro, I hope I'm not being delusional. But the reason why I can still keep myself, smiling enough, I would say, cheered up enough, is because I feel mayroon na tayong second chance, brother, to get things right. I think the 21st century is a chance for the Indias, the Philippines, yung mga, those countries who had the potential and messed it up in the second half to get it right this time. Because I think the stars are aligned. For Vietnam, na kawawang bansa throughout the 20th century, my goodness, from anti-colonial wars to French. Tayo mga bansang ganito, finally may chance na tayo. I would even put Turkey there. I think there are a couple of us around the world I'm looking at na baka itong century will be slightly kinder to us. I mean, fingers crossed. And I'm very...
Economic development, pinaka-bullish ako on Vietnam talaga.
Vietnam,
Pinaka-bullish ako sa
and to a
kanila. Pero
lesson
sana sumabay rin tayo. Kasi kaya naman.
Kaya naman. I mean, we're still growing faster than Vietnam. But as I understand, Vietnam is moving into services. I was with call center people. They were telling me even call center pinapasukan ng mga Vietnamese. So we have to move in the other direction in manufacturing, industrial policy. And for me, there are two things we need to do moving forward to make sure this century will get it. Yes, Trump will be there and US will be protectionist forever. Yes. But we have to leverage yung ating geopolitical position and tell to America this: we got the second largest reserves of nickel on Earth. All the nickel mines, cobalt
I
mines are
see.
all dominated by China. Good luck, Indonesia. Good luck,
I see.
Africa. You want to make sure your EV battery production, your supply chains are not China dominated or China free. Come to the Philippines. We have the second largest reserves, and we can expand production. So we can leverage that. We are just next to Taiwan. I'm from Baguio. We have been proudly producing Texas Instruments for the past 67 years. We can do more packaging and design and semiconductor production. So we position ourselves as a trusted partner in a kind of a China-free supply chain. That's how you bilaterally talk to US. Feeling ko that could be the ember or some sort of a locomotive for a new form of manufacturing and
Tsaka,
economic
pare, gusto ko
dynamism.
yun kasi sabi mo meron pa ring design element. So meron pa ring service element dyan, di ba? Kasi
Oh yeah,
a new industrial policy doesn't mean you give up on services. Kasama yon, di ba?
right.
Sabi nga ni Noel de Jose, whenever we talk about industrial policy, we never ask the question, anong itsura ng industrial policy sa isang bansa na service-oriented?
Right.
Kasi most industrial policy, and lalo na sa developing world, di ba? Are meant for whatever agricultural economies, di ba?
Right.
Most of the literature on industrial policy in the
Good point.
developing world doon ang gagaling eh. Pero
That's a good
ngayon
point,
wala na
yeah.
tayo doon eh, di ba? I like I know I've had many disagreements with JC Punong Bayan, but one place where I really agree with him is lagi niya pinapaalala sa mga tao, uy, hindi na tayo industrial economy, hindi na tayo agricultural economy ah. So kung
Yes.
hindi na tayo agricultural economy, 'di ba? Ano yung industrial policy for a non-agricultural service-based economy? It's a very interesting question, and I don't know the answers, pero I would encourage yung mga mas matatalino sa atin about economics and industrial
And in
policy
the case
to
of
ask that
India,
question, di ba?
India and Indonesia, diba? So India and Indonesia are very service dominated, resource heavy in Indonesia. But you can see that I'm not sure this is a perfect parallel kasi they have a scale that we don't have. But for instance, Indonesia imposed new tariffs on Apple because they're forcing Apple and all other companies to have more domestic content. So Samsung and other big producers are making sure, like let's say 25-30% is made in Indonesia. India is already like site of production of what 60-70% of all Samsung phones, 15-10-15% of
Ayun.
Apple in the coming years. So feeling ko dapat papunta na rin tayo dyan kung saan sasabihin natin, ang laki. Bro, you have seen it. We have a middle class in the Philippines. This is something inconceivable 10-15 years. Ang idea natin is either mga konyo or masa and then few idiots like you and I in the middle, right? Now, ang laki ng middle class ng Philippines eh. So you can leverage that to tell the manufacturing guys, hey, maybe you want to produce more of your cars here. Whether it's a BYD, whether it's a VinFast. Ang sikat ng VinFast sa Philippines, ang laki ng mga billboards ng VinFast ngayon. So we're moving very fast in the direction of diversification of the market. So I
Like
think
that.
India and Indonesia could be a good model if we get the industrial policy right. But the second part is of course politics, bro. And this is where I want to also pick your mind. How can we make liberalism sexy again? Because the way we smuggled liberalism through is the halo of Aquinos, right? The whole Ninoy
Yun nga
Aquino.
eh.
Without that halo, I'm wondering how can you sell liberalism to the Filipino masses and even let's be I don't want to even use the word masses because the middle class is even more pro Duterte than Marcos based on the service we have seen. So, paano natin gawing sexy ulit ang liberalismo in a way na talagang hindi lang sexy for political reasons but sexy in a way that it actually helps us to make us a more competent and modernizing country. Yun ang inisip ko, brother.
Hindi ako marketer. I think yung one of the reasons why mahirap sagutin yan for me is ito yung arrogance ng liberals. Yung arrogance ng liberals is everybody wants freedom. So at one point, babalik yung mga tao sa liberal. Kasi totoo naman yan eh. Kasi pag sinisiil mo yung mga tao, talaga sinisiil mo, they're going to say, pakawalan mo ako. At yun yung parang, if you like, structural advantage ng liberalismo. Ayaw ng tao masiil at eventually, magkakaroon ng demand for more freedoms dahil ayaw nyo masiil. The question is how long does that take? And of course, we can't assume na parang mangyayari lang yun without us shepherding that along the way, di ba? We need to expose these things. So, and yung tanong dun, di ko alam.
So what not to do? Okay, let me ask you. What not to do?
Yung isa pa,
Yeah.
yung isa pang inherent advantage ng liberalism, at least in its current form, is yung trust of expertise. Trust in experts. Now, I think that in the long run, mananalo yung experts. Bakit? Kasi at the end of the day, reality catches up with you. You can prescribe hydrochloroquine as much as you want, it's not going to cure COVID, di ba? So eventually, or you can say na uminom ka ng like RFK. We need to be making people drink raw milk. O sige, wag ka maniwala sa experts who are saying that raw milk is dangerous. Uminom ka niyan, eventually magkakasakit ka. Alam mo yan? So eventually, yung diktador at saka yung anti-expert, sinasabi ko may tanning sila eh. Kasi structurally, gusto ng taong lumaya at structurally, there is such a thing as truth. And avoiding the truth gets you into trouble. You cannot bleach your way out of COVID-19. You cannot drink copious amounts of raw milk and not have on a population level lots of people getting sick. But we can't rely on that because how long yung ganda ng Tagalog term, may himasmasan, gaano katagal bago mahimasmasan yung mga tao? It could take 50 years, it could take 60 years. And in that process, di ba, ang daming pwedeng malagot, ang daming pwedeng mayari.
Daming pwedeng mamatay.
Daming pwedeng mamatay. So we do need to
to
make expertise, we do need to make freedom sexy. But I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer.
Okay, we
I
just
really
have to
don't.
make sure they're not
I
too
really don't know.
unsexy. Okay, I think I get your point.
Hindi
Para
ko alam.
siguradin natin hindi siya maging unsexy masyado, wag mayabang na expert ka, wag mo ipamukha sa tao na educated ka, Ivy League ka. Kasi napansin ko, parati ko nakikita yan dun sa mga ibang kaibigan natin, parang pinapamukha sa iba na, kami edukado, kami nag-aaral sa mga elite university, blah, 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 kayo, tanga, bobo, yung voter blaming. Galit na galit ako dyan because it's bad politics aside from being morally questionable, 'di ba? Pangalawa, yes, tama ka. Hindi pwede na umasa ka lang na the arc of history will bend towards justice. You have to bend it yourself sometimes because history can take its time and zig and zag, as Obama put it. So at least agree tayo dyan. Last part, let's talk about Duterte. Anong basa mo, brother, dito sa mga, again, I know you're even
Sorry. Actually, nagbigyan mo na ako ng sagot doon.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please, go ahead.
How do you make liberalism sexy again? I think we should, specific to the Philippines, disentangle yung story of liberalism from these elite universities.
boom.
I still think na one of the reasons for yung Duterte, yung 2016, was really yung anger at the top 4 universities.
Yeah.
Binabalikan ko lagi yung blog ni Thinking Pinoy.
The revenge of the
Di lang Thinking Pinoy, but sining isa pa yung nasa Sydney, yung Australian, na atinista na galit sa
Benigno.
Si Benigno, si Gatriel Philippines. A lot of yung haterade dun sa site was really against the top 3. And then may isa doon nung nag-appoint na si Duterte. May nagsabi, ayan na lahat ng mga Sanbeda appointees, kami naman, 'di ba? Kami naman.
Yes.
Now Sanbeda is actually an elite institution. Don't get me wrong. Pero hindi siya kasing yabang nung top 3 or yung top 4, even if it's also elite. And I think like if we can think of liberalism as something that's not confined to these universities, maybe there's a future there. I don't know. I don't know. Pero one thing that we should solve is UP Diliman Yabang. Usong-uso pa rin ang UP Diliman Yabang kung di ka galing UP Diliman.
Diliman is the worst. I've taught at LaSalle and Ateneo.
'Di ba yung mga department sa UP Diliman na kung wala kang degree galing UP Diliman, lesser being ka, 'di ba? Kami nga,
even sa UP Law, ganun sila.
Dumarating galing abroad pagdating sa UP, hindi ka Diliman. Lecturer ka, instructor ka, kahit saan ka pa nanggaling, di ba? Kasi hindi ka nagdaan sa sistema namin, Brad, eh. Yung parang hazing mentality ng UP Diliman. I think UP Diliman is a very problematic institution because yung frat culture rushes out of the frat system, di ba? Kasi frat, kailangan mong patunayan na dumang ka sa sistema.
Ang dami ko rin narinig mga UP Law experts.
Diba?
Bobo yan, di yan UP Law graduate, mga ganyan.
Ganon din mag-isip. Parang kailangan dumaan sa sistema ng UP Diliman Department. Kahit yung mga org nyo, di ba? My God, may mga kailangan mo magsilbi sa mga senior sa org beforehand, di ba? Din ganong klaseng hierarchical na parang entitled kami dito kasi UP kami. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ateneo has this shit too. Pero yung klaseng university traditions na talagang dapat baliin na natin. I would like to see that happen.
Kaya nga ako, I just bash all the top 3 and say, kulelat na tayo internationally, tama ng yabang na yan, let's get our act together. You're absolutely right. I think kay Tito Boy yun, di ba, before our bottom line, yung naisip natin, ito yung revenge ng the other good schools. FEU, San Beda, yung mga Ateneo de Davao, 'di ba? Yung mga na-overlook na matatalino. na eskwela, no? Comparison. Kasi ang entitled nung tatlo na yan eh. Ang
Yeah, and
entitled.
you see it sa bar, you see it a lot sa bar results. Hindi man lagi top 3 na nanalo ng bar. Yung top ng bar, di ba?
San
Parang,
Carlos, yung
San
marami from
Carlos, University
Cebu.
of the Cordilleras,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
of
like
course.
there's talent all over the country.
Talino, dami
And
talino. Exactly.
we should start thinking as about the country as a kind of a network of intelligent people. Kasi ang daming matalino sa Pilipinas. Diyos ko, ang daming matalino sa Pilipinas.
Yun nga napansin ko, brother, hindi lang sa economy or political economy, even in cultural intellectual circles, may mga cartel-cartel tayo. It's a very cartel, society. Practically every realm I've been in, I've noticed there's a cartel, there's this kind of patronage system, entitlement. So I think in many ways populism is also a revolt against an aristocracy or a self-entitled oligarchy for that matter. So that's a cultural, intellectual element we have to keep in mind. Now let's go to the last part.
Actually, sorry, may isa pa akong
Of
sagot.
course,
May isa
bro.
pa akong sagot.
Matuwa, di ba marami kang naisip pag nag-uusap
May
tayo?
lumabas dahil sa mga tanong mo. I was reflecting on bakit effective si Joe Rogan. A lot of people think effective si Joe Rogan dahil sa politics niya. Actually, hindi. Effective si Joe Rogan sa right because he offers self-improvement. A lot of people, no, hindi nakikinig sa Joe Rogan from the left and just condemn him. They think, it's all alt-right shit. It's all comedians who are edgy. No, but actually, like, parang yung ibang episodes si Joe Rogan are about nutrition. They're about lifting. They're about bettering yourself.
Yeah.
And I think liberals have never owned self-improvement. Kasi for people on the left, they don't believe in the self. They believe in collectives. They believe in society as a whole, di ba? They believe in solidarity. So, parang for a lot of them, masturbatory yung idea of self-improvement because it's parang libertarian, bootstraps kind of thinking, right? And so, kaya walang alternative to Joe Rogan sa internet, sa podcast, is because there are no podcasters on the left who are like teaching you how to lift. There are no podcasters on the left teaching you how to do jiu-jitsu, how to improve yourself, how to like become a more efficient worker, how to manage your time. You get that sa Joe Rogan because half of his guests are actually people who tell men how to live better lives. And I think if liberals also tell young men, and actually yung Duterte phenomenon sa Philippines, like the Trump phenomenon, it's also a phenomenon of disaffected young men. If you tell young men that there is a better way to live your life and there are better ways to improve your life, and that this is not incompatible with liberalism, right? May magandang op-ed sa New York Times today, yung I refuse to cede my fitness habit to the far right.
Yeah.
I love that column, di ba? I also refuse to cede my, I eat copious amounts of protein because I want to grow muscle. And that's not toxic masculinity. That's not right-wing. I refuse to cede that to the right. Pwede akong magpalaka ng katawan and still be a left-wing liberal. I think that's one way to make it cool. Self-improvement.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I've been thinking about this kasi the other month meron kaming Spotify podcasters event, yung mga top podcasters nagsama. Tapos kasama ko yung mga comedians, sila Victor Anastasio, all of them are getting into that world meron pa bang toxic masculinity? Parang I think Victor had an episode did very well here in the Philippines was a true masculinity is never toxic. That parang oxymoron yung toxic masculinity. Kung talagang macho ka, hindi ka insecure na magyabang, magbanter. Yung mga loser lang yung ganyan. Yung totoong macho na lalaki. So, I'm glad na ganito na yung nagiging conversation. Parang, and I don't know, Lele, obviously you're at the heart of, woke culture and all of that. But, yes, Silliman University too, may mga nagka-comment. Of course, I'm just saying, in Baguio, we have great universities. So, you see, it resonates, bro. Yung mga sinasabi natin dito, yung mga kupal lang top 3 na yan, kupal natin sa Katipunan and all. No, going back to this,
Katipunan Mafia,
meron tayo ng kupal talaga tayo. But going back...
Actually, may sinabi ka sa akin, I think mga 10 years ago Sabi, you told me something like, the problem with this country is that people think the intellectual developments only happen on a small strip of Katipunan Avenue, in a small strip of Katipunan Avenue. 10 years ago, sinabi mo yun, and it's still very true.
I was inspired by some line in some French philosophy, something like that. Yung one strip or something. Parang it was a joke about a cafe in Paris that everyone thinks all the brains of France is there. So I thought like, we think that Katipunan, that thin strip is where everything is invested. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now going back to this, bro. Yeah, we need to do something about it. Kaya sobrang thankful ako, bro, sa'yo. At dami rin natuwa at nagalit sa'yo doon sa ginawa natin kay Ben Tulfo and all. Yung, yung long walks natin in Berkeley. I hope we can continue that kasi maraming nagsasabi sa akin na kung babae ka ngayon or LGBT ngayon, this is a good time dahil empowered ka. Dahil marami kang platform. A lot of scholarships, a lot of fellowships, meron ng may favorability kung you come from minority background. Practically apply to anything now. There's a question: are you from a minority background? Pronouns, whatever. So where does that leave young men? And that's my concern. What can we say how can we also create a sense of empowerment for younger men so that they're not attracted to this alt-right nonsense who think in zero-sum terms. Kasi in theory, hindi dapat yung more rights for minorities mean less rights for men, right? Unless you
Oo
think...
nga eh.
So,
Zero sum.
exactly.
Tama,
So how
zero
can
sum.
you make it, as the Chinese put it, win-win, right? Yun yung ano eh, that's how I'm thinking. Kaya nga, very important how you define masculinity in a way that it's a win-win situation. Na ang tunay na macho na lalaki is also happy to see his girl being empowered. Is happy to see na yung anak niya na LGBT is empowered. You know what I'm saying? Yun yung kulang sa atin eh. Yung, I mean, in terms of discourse among us, quote-unquote, traditional intellectuals. And I think that's where we're losing the cultural war. There's so much there eh. The reason I know a lot about that world is because pag gamer ka, 'di ba, bro? You get into the gamer and basketball world in the Philippines.
Nag-gamer ka ba?
Not
Nag-gaming
necessarily
ka?
ako. I used to be gamer. Wala na akong time eh. But yung cousins ko are gamers. And they're also basketball people. So when I hang out with them, stuff come out in conversation and all. Like, oh nga, no, ganun talaga yung thinking. Na sobrang layo dun sa mga diskurso natin. Di ba? So, dun ko nakikita na hindi rin tayo ganun ka nagkakalayo sa mga Amerikano for all the differences we have.
Oo nga, no? Oo nga, no?
Tingnan mo
Tsaka,
bro, yung
yun,
mga asar sa mga gamers, ganun.
tsaka meron ba tayong statistics about yung number of men na nakakapasa ng college ngayon? Kasi one of the reasons why
Ah,
disempowered yung mga lalaki sa US is
education
because
gap.
hindi nagkakaroon talaga ng education gap.
Yeah.
And there are biological reasons for that, di ba? Yung parang late
Yung brain
puberty ng
formation ng women
lalaki,
is 1 year
ganyan.
ahead. Yeah.
Mas mabilis, ganyan. So, na-disadvantage. So, may statistics ba tayo sa Pilipinas? Hindi ko alam eh.
That's a good question. But
Showing
I won't be
statistics together.
surprised na from my own experience, parati mga babae mga best in class. There's always one or two idiot men who are like genius level na hindi nag-aaral, nagwa-Warcraft lang sa umaga tapos nagtatop ng calculus. May mga ganon. But yeah,
Actually,
overall,
nga, anecdotally, no, I'm trying to remember nga sino mga best students ko. Actually, puro babae nga. Puro babae.
'di ba? Puro
Oo, mga
babae
babae.
usually,
Oo.
you can say. Let's not say more kasi mapapahamak na tayo. We have to think that through. But bro,
Pero totoo naman, like, parang just top of my mind, di ba? Yung
no,
mga,
that's
mga
important.
best, yung mga tipo mga Trisha Robredo types, mga ganyan, mga talagang high-powered female
Go
students
get
sa
it. Yeah,
Atenista.
yeah, yeah.
Oo,
Go
get
for
it.
G.
Oo.
Go for G.
Oo.
Yun nga eh. I need to look at that. I hope there are people are doing. I'm sure there's sociologists and education experts who are doing that. So, kaya na actually we know more about US, yung numbers of education gap, ganun. Kasi there are a couple of stuff I've been checking in the US, but you're right. We have to do that in the Philippines. Last point, bro. Duterte. How do you see all of these hearings, Quadcom, etc.? Obviously, si Risa lang yung matino dun sa Senado, the whole factotum hearings. But the Quadcom, the lower house is I think they're pinning down pretty well the Dutertes and exposing them. Do you think there's a historic opportunity here to get it through? Effectively, when I warn against Dutertes in 2028, it's a way of saying you have to finish the job by 2025 and
Oo nga eh.
2026. I mean, that's essentially what I'm saying.
So, bakit di pa na-impeach? Yun lang yung tanong ko. And nakikinig ako sa inyo, di ba? Every time nag-RRM kayo, lagi mo tatanong si Ronald, parang, ito na ba yung time na impeach? Is it too late? Ganyan. So, ba't di nila ginagawa? Ba't di nila tuluyan? At akala ko ba, speaking of Sunny Trillanes, di ba ang goal ni Sunny Trillanes is gusto niya at least tuluyan na itong mga Duterte para matapos na talaga to. In a way, like parang Trump is actually a very good way to think about a comeback. Kasi si Trump naman after January the 16th, or January the 6th, sorry.
Yeah. Akala
Pwede
niya
naman
tapos
tuluyan
na.
yan eh. Pwede namang Sinda McConnell, the more traditional Republicans,
Senator,
could
yeah.
have really just gone after him and joined forces with the Democrats para pakulong na talaga yan, para tapos na, di ba? pwede naman nangyari yan ng Republican Party si Trump. Well, Biden would have been harder because he would have been accused of partisanship. Pero yung
Yeah.
mga people who secretly didn't like him, mga people like Mitch McConnell, or even, somebody like Marco Rubio, pwede mo lang tuluyan yan.
Yun
Eh.
nga
But
yung
yun lang
sinasabi ko, bro. When you strike at these people, at the populists, you have to finish the job. Kaya I will always...
Oo.
Otherwise, they'll come back like a zombie with a vengeance. And that's exactly what
Oo
happened
nga
here.
eh.
Maging mukhang victim pa sila. Kaya sabi ko, the admin has crossed the line na. BBM has crossed the line. Kasi if BBM doesn't see this
Kaaway
through,
na niya.
yari siya pag bumalik ang mga Dutertes. As in, yari yung mga Marcoses. What the Dutertes will do to the Marcoses come 2028 will be 10 times worse than what they experienced after the fall of Marcos dictatorship. Yayariin sila. Yari si anong pangalan ng bata?
Si Sandro.
Sandro. I'm
Si
telling you,
Sandro.
bro. They have crossed the line na.
Lahat ng mga kaso, ungkat ulit. Yung PCGG, buhay
Ang
ulit.
dami nilang kaso, brother. Yari
Oo.
sila. And then, guess who? Harry Roque will be the man of human rights and anti-dictatorship. I can see already everything that's gonna happen. Kaya...
Never again, never again. Sabi, si Sarah nga mismo nagsabi na, di ba? Never again, gumano na.
So you see, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if Trump is proof, like it's proof na pwedeng bumalik to mga to. I think there are certain factors that will allow for really stamping out the Dutertes. Number one nga, sabi mo, yung very temporary realignment of the House of Representatives to become anti-Duterte. Remember, the House of Representatives is one of the most fickle institutions in Philippine politics. Ganyan yan ngayon, pero madaling bumaliktad yan, di ba? The presidential wins change, tapos na yan, di ba? Because, I mean, sa House naman, pera-pera lang yan eh.
Wala tayong sinasabi.
Pero figure naman yung institution. So, habang aligned yung House at saka yung Senado, yatiin mo na. And then, yung isa pa, yung Amerikano, yung bago mong Secretary of State is the most anti-Duterte senator in all of the House of Representatives. Siya yung leader ng mga tao. He wrote an article saying that the United States should care about the Philippines and should care about the fact na may diktador sa Pilipinas in Duterte.
I know.
Diba? Si Marco Rubio.
Yeah, Marco
Na yung
Rubio.
mga leaders, tatanga-tanga kayo, celebrate ng Trump victory, hindi you didn't realize na yung main agent ng foreign policy ng US is the most anti-Duterte senator and the best friend of Sonny Trillanes.
Not true. Fake news. Bro!
Ano na?
Bro, sobrang tawa ko nung nag-message.
Masaya pa rin kayo?
Sobrang natawa ko nung minessage mo ko. Wow, pogi ni Trillanes. Kaya interview natin si Sunny ng Friday. Kamusta ang beshi natin dyan? Just to
Masaya
keep in
siya.
mind, bro, no, pinapatay ni Digong yata si Trillanes noon, di ba? Like he had to go exile and all. And Marco Rubio passed a resolution in support of Senator De Lima. Ganon ka-invested siya.
Yes.
This
Very
guy is
early.
legit.
Very early si Senator Rubio, as early as 2016. Bukas ang pinto niyan sa oposisyon ng Pilipinas.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not MAGA. He's actually not MAGA. It's a very interesting development. I don't know kung concession lang yan, and I don't know how much leeway Trump is going to give incoming Secretary Rubio, but man, it's good for Marcos kung gusto niya talaga mag-anti-Duterte, because babasbasan niya ng State Department.
Yeah. Anti-China siya. So he's a China hawk, which is bad news for Duterte. Natatawa talaga ako dun sa Duterte DDS narrative na Trump will rescue Duterte kasi beshies. Like, what idiotic thinking is that? You think may pake si Trump? May pake si Trump sa mga losers in like some third world country? No, he will work with whoever is in power and cut a deal. And Marcos says, you tell me, brother, Marcos has have a deep tie with Trump. They have the same, si Manford. Di ba, si Marcos Sr., let's make the Philippines great again, literally, yung kanyang Manafort campaign.
Yung first campaign manager ni Trump, si Paul Manafort, was effectively the campaign manager of
Marcos
Apple
Sr.
in 586. So, at saka syempre yung yung daming pictures si Imelda kasama si
Studio
Donald,
54
diba?
days. And bro, so anong building ulit yung sa kanila daw, yung Trump building sa Wall Street na kila Marcos daw? Di ba sila Carranza, meron sila. Oh, didn't you know that?
Ba yung 66, yung
yeah,
666,
allegedly,
yung,
yeah, diba?
yung
There's at least one.
Kushner building
Yeah,
ata.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure about that.
There's at least one building na Trump na binili ng mga Marcoses back in the day. Again, allegedly kasi alam mo naman, mahirap na. So yeah, like anong i-offer ni Digong? And then, so I just ganon ka desperate ang mga DDS ngayon na they're just inventing stories just to give hope to their base kasi yari sila ngayon with anti-China hawks in power, brother. So you're absolutely right. Pogi si Trillanes
Pero yun
ngayon.
nga, dapat talaga tuluyan na tama ka because parang sa Pilipinas naman, kung may base ka, lagi ka may comeback. Ang base ng Marcos Mindanao, napakalinaw. Kahit anong mangyari, di mo matinag yung base sa Mindanao.
100%.
Kahit pababa dun sa iba, di ba? Pero yung Mindanao, and then to a lesser degree, yung Visayas nahawakan. And, the Marcoses should know this because the Marcoses, they were very unpopular, but they always had the base of Ilocos to mount a comeback. So, in Philippine politics, a geographic base is always the platform for a comeback. From there you expand.
You're
Diba?
absolutely right.
So,
That's the locomotive.
Hindi mawala yung sa mga Duterte.
Yun nga yung sinasabi. That's the locomotive. I see it as a locomotive because you can use that to leverage to build a national coalition. Like yung MAGA base ni Trump was seen as 15 to 20%, right? And barely half of Republican Party. But because Nikki Haley, DeSantis didn't have anything similar to that, he used that as a leash to build a large coalition within Republican Party and nationally. So the same with BBM. So yes, it's just Mindanao now, which is 100% solid behind the Dutertes, but they can leverage that properly down the road. Ito bro, I'll tell you this.
Pero may tanong
Please.
ako sa'yo though. Parang yung tanong dito is there Trumpism without Trump? Like JD Vance clearly doesn't have Trump's charisma. So I feel ko hindi as electable si JD Vance. He's much more intelligent and that makes him scary. But wala ka talagang charisma to maman to. Is there a Dutertismo without Digong? Because kung magkakaroon ng Duterte comeback, hindi na si Tatay yung babalik. Ang tanda-tanda na ni Tatay, di ba? So, is there a Dutertismo without Digong?
Well, first of all, kay Trump, I think it will be an apprentice show. Rubio and JD Vance and Elon Musk, they're all gonna duke it out. Who's gonna be the ideologue? Obviously, Elon Musk cannot run for president, but that will never stop him from trying to be the shadow president, right? So in the US, I think...
Ang prediction ni Kara Swisher, yung tech reporter who knows Elon intimacies,
the tech world.
Musk and Elon's ego are too big to be in the same room together. So, feel niya, ang prediction na magkakaroon ng divorce.
Mag-aaway talaga yan at some point. Although Thiel...
Marcos Duterte, guguho yung uniting na yun.
And speaking of that, that's happening even in Hungary under Viktor Orban. So yung Fidesz is now falling apart because nagkaroon ng unity fragmentation din. Nung wasak na yung opposition, sila nang away ngayon. So that's the story of humanity, right? Kaya walang Illuminati.
So anyway, sorry, back to my question. Kaya ba ni Sarah, does Sarah have the charisma to be able to take on the mantle of Dutertismo and become the next Digong?
As I always said, okay, so this is my case why Sarah can still come back. No, why Dutertes can come back. Because I don't think Digong can run again in 2028. First of all, we have seen with the case of BBM that even a poor copy of the original can come back with a vengeance.
The charisma.
I mean, compare BBM with his father, it's not even close. So,
Tama.
Even though I've argued that Sarah is a poor copy of an originally problematic thing, she's still polling at 50-60%, and she's more or less tied with Rafi Tulfo in some surveys to be the next president. So it would be foolish to dismiss her ability. And then, she... with a little bit retouch, she can also be quite showbiz good looking, si Sarah. So yung appeal niya, you cannot underestimate that, brother. Pangalawa, my fear is ang mangyari dito ganito. So this is a scenario where Dutertes can come back. So this congressman and all will juice this Quadcom until election day. Kasi mukhang natutuwa sila masyado sa nakukuha nilang attention. Brother, never in history did this congressman get so much airtime for free. So, ang concern ko dito is, masyadong mahimas, hindi na mangyari yung katay. Himas ng himas, di ba? Bago mo katay. Ang fear ko is magkakaroon dito ng, or my concern is magkakaroon dito ng overhimas, but they don't see it through. And then election comes in and then it gets out of control. So, honestly, I'm still wondering, does BBM have a bongo to get this together? There are a couple of bongos I have in mind.
Bro, yung isa pang tanong dyan, may China factor ba yan? Is there a possibility na talagang yung China mag-all in kay Sara, and that will be a formidable opponent also.
Matalino mga Chinese. So if they think you're viable, definitely they would try to do something along those lines. Kaya nga maganda, andun sila Marco Rubio because pwede gamitin ang US ngayon to get intelligence on whether may funding na pumapasok. Right? If you want to know kung sino mga politicians na fina-fund ng China, that's illegal. That could take you down. The Americans will help you there. Kaya si Ronald sabi niya, hindi na siya katulad dati na yung US ay mag-launch ng coup and all of that. I said, they don't have to launch coup. All they have to do is just to help the Philippine authorities to track down the money trail. And once you find that, tapos ng usapan dapat. Diba? So the US, bro, invested ng US kay BBM at saka Philippines. They're not gonna allow Dutertes to come back. But, you have to do your part pa rin, di ba? Kasi kumbaga, the stars are aligning against Dutertes, but you still have to get the job done. And then, ito yung fear ko, bro. Someone who has a Malacanang connection, alright, told me there is a temptation now na pilitin si Martin Romualdez as a placeholder for Sandro. And that for me is a recipe for disaster. Like, I just don't know how Martin can... So baka nga ma-convince pa daw sila Tulfo na hindi natatakbo or mag-VP na lang kayo. Pahinga muna
Kay
kayo.
Martin.
Public service, yeah. So, if pipilitin nila
Hindi
yung
mo magana yun? You think you can convince the Tulfos given na the momentum is on their side?
Well, I mean, there are many ways to convince people.
Okay.
Medyo natakot ako nung narinig ko yung scenario nila. Like, I just hope they're not out of this their mind. There's no way. That's very risky, kumbaga. Just to put it nicely. If their plan is to force the Martin Romualdez and then so that Sandro will be, I don't know, 40 or whatever down, delikado yan, magbabackfire yan, and that will benefit the Dutertes. Kasi, I just don't see how Martin can beat Sara. And I just don't see how can they do that.
Imposible yan.
Medyo, ang hirap bro. But may nagsabi sa akin na may connection talaga sa, may temptation na ganun. Na this time, we will go all the way, di ba? Whether we'll force a constitutional change, whether we'll just bulldozer our way through the election 2028. So, doon ako biglang kinabahan, like, if pipilitin nila yan, may chance talaga si Sara. It's even possible na marami sa opposition will rather side with Sara and all, just to say, ayaw namin ng Marcos regime again. So I just hope Marcos...
Ayaw namin ng side with Sara para wala ng chacha.
At least, in fairness to Duterte, they're still playing the electoral game. Diba? You were the very you were the perspicacious guy who said, tingnan mo, nanalong EDSA so far because Marcos is the one working within the constitutional order. But I could also make an argument, in 2 years from now, maybe it's like this. The Dutertes still played the electoral game. They stepped down after 6 years. What if the Marcoses are the one who want to change the constitution by that
Tapos
time?
yung Duterte, pro-constitution, pro-86, tapos si Sara comes out and says never again, like she did a couple months ago.
And the Harurok is once again the human rights. Bro, this is Philippines. In 2 years, that's very possible. That's what I'm saying. Di ko sinasabi mangyayari ito. Ang sinasabi ko, isa ito sa mga major scenarios that are being seriously discussed. So, kaya sinasabi ko ito openly because yung iba, they have to do what they have to do. Kung ikaw ay si Tulfo na ikinig ka sa akin ngayon, ikaw Leni, ikaw Risa, whatever, ikaw si Sara, whatever, draw your lessons from this So, kaya bro, medyo edgy ako ngayon Medyo edgy ako kasi when I heard that scenario,
I understand, naintindihan ko
suddenly
na.
actually you're right kasi hindi ko nasabi yan very openly, but I just felt I have to say it now. Kasi many people are saying, wait, si Richard, bakit sobrang panic na naman siya na mabalik mga Dutertes, baka he's being emotional. My point is actually there's a backdrop to this. I've been hearing about this plan for 3 or 4 months already. Nung excited na tayo na eto na, yari na mga may nagsabi, be careful what you wish for. Alam mo yung Charlie Wilson?
Nakakapanik naman talaga, di ba? Because I think we are in agreement na parang he's really probably the worst president of all time. Yes, magandang economic policy niya, pero killing...
Oh, yeah.
He's probably the worst Philippine president of all time. Despite, and I'm saying this despite the fact that I respect his economic policy. So, bilib na ako sa economic policy niya. And yet, I am still willing to say, worst president of all time. Dahil yung velocity ng pagpatay at saka yung pagbenta ng kaluluwa, hindi lang ng teritoryo natin, kundi yung kaluluwa natin sa China. I mean, it's like you have the Dutertes back again, and meron talagang may sakit yung pamilyang yan eh. There's a darkness in that family
Dysfunctional
that I don't know
family.
where
It's a
it comes from.
dysfunctional
There's a
family.
very, very dark family. You can see it. You can see it now with Sarah. Yung darkness does not end with Digong, di ba? Papatay din yan eh. Hindi na talaga tayo pwede bumalik doon. My God.
So on
So
a
yeah,
pos-
I understand
so you see where I'm coming from.
urgency.
I didn't spell it out kasi. Yeah, so you're right na. I know you were a bit skeptical. Baka naman si Richard just being emotional. Kaya kanina medyo tumataas ang kilay ko. Like, wait lang, Lelo. There's a reason why I'm seriously worried. It's not just because
Hindi
I'm
kasi
panicking.
ayoko rin matakot eh. Kasi
Oh.
you have to understand.
No, I'm just being brutally
Nakatira ako sa-
honest. Yeah.
Nakatira ako sa US. Sobrang lungkot ko this week.
Sorry,
Dahil
bro.
medyo punch
Sorry,
yung
bro.
nangyari.
Sorry.
Tapos, I comforted myself in thinking, baka naman mas maayos yung sa bansa ko talaga. Pero grabe naman, kung bumalik sa mga Duterte, ano na yun, parang
Ako na naman nagpa-depress ng tao.
nakaka-depress.
I'm just saying, if you're Tulfo listening to me now, if you're Leni listening to Ariza, do your part. Do your part. Kasi papunta pa tayo sa mas interesting plot twist. Last point, bro. I still think Leni has it in her. So I'm suddenly reversing my position in the sense that feeling ko malakas talagang dating ni Leni eh. I won't be surprised if Leni can be presidentiable again in 2026, 2027. Especially if she does very well in Naga. And then maybe Risa can be the VP here. I can see that scenario. If, of course, again, this is scenario, meaning certain things have to be done.
Assuming na tinapos yung mga Duterte, of course.
Yes. Tinapos or essentially below threshold of reactivation na sila, if I can put it that way. Now, they'll be around, like a Davao-based dynasty, but no longer a national force. That's doable. I mean,
Dapat yung gawin sa kanila yung ginawa, like close yung ginawa ni Pinoy kay Binay.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
More than that, actually even more than that, kung anong durog ginawa ni Pinoy kay, dapat yung gagawin sa kanila yung ginawa nila kay Dilima, ganyan. Ganong klaseng durog
No,
talaga.
kung may
Durog.
ginawa talagang mali si Sara na graft or corruption, whatever, actually, even if she doesn't get impeached, because she doesn't have full immunity, hindi siya president, VP siya, she can be disqualified from office.
Prosecute.
Yeah, she can still be
Prosecute.
disqualified. So, you can imagine a scenario whereby Dutertes are still a force in Davao, but no longer a national force, di ba? But going back to this, bro, I'm not feeling ko may laban pa rin si Leni eh. To be honest.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
I think so, brother. I think so. And I'm saying this as someone who have been really saying Riza na. And I of course still 100% believe in Riza. I think you rather have an embarrassment of riches whereby both Riza and Leni are competitive by 2026,
I see what you mean.
But I'm saying Leni is a force to reckon with. I mean, grabe yung past 3 months, everyone is going to her. I mean, like, bro, when every time Leni does something special, yung emotional resonance niya has no. Only Digong probably can create that kind of emotional resonance. Although, of course, from a dark side yung sa kanya. So I think there's something to Leni pa rin eh. I mean, di ba, if one thing BBM showed is you can lose an election and come back and win even bigger. Hindi na yung
That's true.
tadhana na once lang. So, in theory, I'm open to the idea of Leni running again 2028. Again, of course, Ma'am Leni made it clear, wala akong balak. Ang focus ko ang Naga, but she also said, much will also depend on public clamor. So, if by 2026, 27, she's doing fantastic in Naga and all of that, who knows, brother? So, all my warnings about possible return of Duterte is because I know others could put the pieces together. But if they don't put the pieces together and think the pendulum is swinging back, laos na mga Duterte, my goodness, mayari tayo dyan. Maging Democrat na naman kayo dyan.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting because sinasabi ng mga tao that Filipinos have short memories, di ba? And I'm starting to think it's not about short or long memories. It's about mabilis magbago ang winds of politics, ang ihip ng tadhana, dahil mabilis ang media natin ngayon. So,
Cycles.
people change their minds really quickly dahil ang bilis ng mga nangyayari sa news at sa media. And yeah, the ultimate proof of that, I guess, is natalo si Bongbong ng VP tapos naging majority president. I mean, people are
Right.
saying na landslide itong Trump. Yung kay BBM, yun ang totoong landslide.
Right.
That was a real landslide, electoral landslide. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, Riza lost twice. She won third. Pia Wurtzbach lost twice. Then Miss Universe. So, I think we're entering an interesting era whereby hindi na siya one-time, big
walang
time.
completely nalalaos.
Yeah. I think
Hindi na
Leni
natin
can
pwedeng
come
sabihin
back.
na nalalaos mga tao.
Absolutely, brother. Walang nalalaos, hindi lang mga populist, Bati yung mga kabila. I think pink movement can come back with some iterations and differences with Riza in the mix. So, I just hope people appreciate where I'm coming from. Hindi ako partisan or yung manok ko to. You can see when I see the alignment of forces are changing. I also my recommendation change accordingly. And my sense is, the alignments are favoring a Leni
That's good.
comeback in 2027,
Okay,
2028.
okay yun sa akin. And I would wish na kung bumalik si Leni, in the same way, ito rin ang wish ko for the Democrats, yung malinaw na economic populism talaga.
100%.
Malinaw na economic populism, yung talagang everything is pro-poor. And hindi lang yung pro-poor na maggagawa tayo ng trabaho. Hindi. Meron tayong mga lalabanan. Actually, yun yung key ng populism, di ba? I was listening to a spokesperson from Bernie Sanders. You cannot have a populism without an enemy. So you cannot just say, I am from the working class without asking the question, sino ba talagang kalaban ng working class?
Right.
Di ba, in the US, yung kalaban talaga ng working class are the billionaires, are effectively the 1% who ask for things like tax cuts for the rich, di ba?
Yeah.
So you need to say that these people are your enemy, not the Democrats, not the woke Democrats, it's these people. Sa Pilipinas, ganun din. Like, ang kalaban mo, yung oligarkiya, di ba?
Yeah.
Na sila yung 1% ng Pilipinas. And unless it's very clear na may binabangga ka, then you can't have an economic populism. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Meron talagang kaaway sa populismo.
And I think that's where Riza comes in. I think Riza will be a locomotive for a more edgy, for a more class, social justice-oriented liberalism. So more social democracy version. Because the one that we saw in 2022 was your very traditional, liberal, pa-safe. I mean, in fact, for me, it's quite telling na ang dami kong kilala na pro-Leni, na pro-Trump rin. So, there's so many people who voted for Leni na may social values na quite conservative. So much conservative that they're willing to vote for someone like Trump. So that for me was illuminating. So ang kulang natin dito is a much more expansive, mass-based, economy-oriented version na yes, naintindihan ko sa Pilipinas, this is a Reagan nation, this is a Trump nation. Yes, I understand that. Pwede naman yan i-package eh. The fact that Riza has managed to win back-to-back elections in the toughest of times shows social democracy can work. So I'm glad that Riza is doing great, and I'm glad that Leni is still a force to reckon with, and who knows, maybe there's something down the road. So I'm ending on a very positive note, brother, para you can sleep well na. Relax.
Lahat na sinasabi natin, parang, at saka vision of Filipino greatness. If she runs with a vision for Filipino greatness. Because as you keep saying, we are a country that needs to have more pride. And if there is someone who can trigger that pride or engender that pride, that person would be very appealing. Kasi tapos na yung mga araw na mababatingin natin sa sarili natin eh.
100%.
Natutunan ko sa'yo eh.
100%.
At dahil tapos na yung mga araw na yun, naghahanap tayo ng isang pangulo na mamumuno with dignity and with pride for the entire nation.
Absolutely. Yung kupal ng UP Diliman, in-elevate ko sa international level. So,
Ayun!
instead na magyabang ako with other schools, nagyabang ako for the Philippines. So, I think that's the way forward. We should be kupal for our country.
I like it.
Kupal patriotism. That's what I believe in, brother. Sino idol ko? Yung mga Indians. Ang kupal nila ngayon, and I love them. Sobrang angas sa mga Indians ngayon. I love them. They're so good. Dapat kupal tayo like them. Like, nga, bakit? Sino? Akala mo, pitsugin lang kami. So, I'm all for a kupal foreign policy. Make us kupal again because kupal gets you respect in this world. Case in point, Donald Trump, the most kupal populist on earth. Successful, man. It works. Good kupal. Kupal with the heart.
Good kupal with humor, with edge, but with the heart, di ba?
Absolutely.
Humor, warmth, edge, and pride.
Just because hindi naman tayo nag-apply sa campaign ni Leni or anyone. I'm just saying we're giving free advice, ethereal advice. Thank you so much, brother. I hope you get good rest.
Thank you.
Idol na idol kita, brother. You're doing a fantastic job. Continue to do your fantastic work. Daming natutuwa sa mga sinasabi mo. You are a source of intellectual introspection, and you're also an inspiration dahil ang lakas mo magbuhat ng weights. I'm just telling you guys, he's the most macho na hindi mukhang macho guy I've seen in this world. Like, shit, not kidding. Where is that coming from? I was so impressed, brother. That was a great job. I hope one day maging Andrew Tate ng kabila. I look forward. You'll be the Andrew Tate of the left. From Berkeley. Live from Berkeley,
Let's do
brother.
it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Community
Yeah.
service. Community service.
Nice catching up with you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Uwi ako for the holidays.
Let's do that, brother.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Ingat. Have a good
Talk to
day.
you soon.
And
Bye.
send regards to your lovely wife.
Oh,
Twitter,
thank you,
Twitter
thank you.
friends na kami ngayon
Oo
eh.
nga, tinitweet ka dyan. Alam ko.
Nagtitweetan
Alam
kami.
ko. Oo.
Talk to you soon.
Sige.
God
Bye,
bless.
bye. Okay.
Great people, amazing people, wonderful people. Oh, di ba? I love this guy. He's amazing. I love Lelo. He's the greatest. I think kaya ako may pag-asa sa ating bayan dahil may mga katulad ni Leloy, di ba? Tingnan mo, kahit nasa US na siya, nasa UC Berkeley na and everything, mahal na mahal niya ang Pilipinas. Parati ang puso niya nandito. And I'll be honest, I won't be surprised if we get a good president in 2028, maraming katulad ni Leloy babalik sa bansa para, to serve the nation. So, actually, ang dream scenario sa akin is may makuha tayong matinong presidente in the near future para ma-inspire natin lahat ng mga matatalinong Pinoy all around the world to come back and help us. Imagine mo ang daming magaling na Pinoy all around the world. I've been in the best institutions, visited them. Ang daming mga Pinoy na kilala. Like, oh my God, imagine mo lahat ng mga yan ay bumalik at tumulong sa bansa natin. Good. Kaya I hope guys yung mga kupal natin, di kayo nagagalit. Kasi patriotic yung pagkakupal natin, pare. Para hindi tayo mapitsugin ng mga ibang bansa. So, kaya ako, nakita nyo, pag mga kausap natin, mga foreigners, mga dayuhan, I still dominate. It's like, there's no way I'm gonna allow you to tell me what to do, right? So, medyo good kupal naman yan eh. So, thank you guys. Salamat sa inyong suporta kay Leloy. Once his book is out, meron siyang fantastic new book na review ko rin yan ukol sa what could have been, no? Yung mga industrial policy natin early 20th century. Bakit hindi tayo naging industrial country katulad ng mga Korea and all? At syempre, pag binasa mo yan, magkakaroon ka ng idea na anong pwede natin gawin sana sa 21st century. So please continue to support us. Really appreciate your support. If not for your support, I wouldn't have done this. Kasi, and by the way, mamayang gabi naman 9 p.m. with Justice Carpio naman tayo. Analyze natin ang Quadcom. Analyze natin yung situation ni Duterte from a legal standpoint. On Friday naman, God willing, we'll have Tony Trillanes, Senator Trillanes, great guy, amazing guy. And then RRM naman sa Saturday sana. Kausapin ko si Ronald para RRM naman tayo. Alright? Yes, Duterte the best. The best tatay ng mga... Just kidding. Wag na tayo magkasaran. Yung mga ka-DDS natin. Uy, matuwa nga kayo. Sabi ko, may laban pa rin kayo. Di ba? Ganon ako kabait. Na sinasabi ko, may laban pa rin ng mga DDS. Pero baka sa totoo lang, wala na. Baka nga laos na kayo. Thank you very much, guys. Again, I'll update you as soon as Leloy's book is out. Please pray for me para matapos ko yung revision ng libro ko. Napapagod na ako, as you can see in my eye bags. I'm trying to do all my normal job plus this, and then I'm trying to revise my book. Oh my goodness, medyo napapagod na ako. And I want to focus on my next book project on Marcos's return of Marcos's future of the Philippines, everything we're discussing here. So please guys, just pray for our health, pray for our strength, and focus. I really need to be able to focus. Yun ang inggit ko sa mga full-time academics na eh. Hindi sila pulled in 10 different direction katulad natin. But at the same time, I'm so glad that because of you guys, I'm constantly informed. Kasi kailangan ko I need to constantly remain informed dahil tignan mo naman kay Chris Tan kahapon, di ba? Ang ganda ng breakdown ng Quadcom. So, na-educate din ako. Mas marami ko alam kasi realistically, hindi ko naman I cannot go through the whole 8-12 hours, di ba? So, dahil sa inyo, dahil sa ginagawa natin, I keep very informed about what is the latest development. So, please lang, continue. God bless and talk to you soon. Mamayang gabi kay Justice Carpio naman tayo. See you later, guys.